Hello everyone, welcome to the channel Life and Love, where we try to make sense of our lives and see if there's a way of living in harmony with all beings. So today I continue from last part, which was an introduction in self-knowledge, where you have seen quotations from various masters of all traditions pointing out that self-knowledge is imperative to get to that state of knowledge. So to know ourselves is to realize our own being. But the question is, how are we going to do that? How are we going to get to such a state of mind? Today I'm not going to bombard you with quotations and teachings or whatever. I'll only try to unveil the self so that knowledge will drop away. Not that we don't use knowledge in everyday life, of course we do. It's a part of our existence. But in knowing the self, we don't really need to acquire anything because we are already it. So nothing is added and nothing is taken away from it. It's only a discovery. It's a discovery like an archaeologist will discover a site, and the work to unveil that site, the archaeological object from that site, it is a very hard and painstaking process of unveiling. So it's the same with the self-knowledge. It's a very painful and hard process to unveil. And once it's discovered, the self will manifest its own beauty, its own love, which is in all of us. Only one quotation I would like to point out to, and this is from Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj, which points out very beautifully that self-knowledge is not that process of adding anything on, but it's a knowing of what you are not, which will allow you to unveil the self.
Only when you know yourself as entirely alien to and different from the body will you find respite from the mixture of fear and craving inseparable from I am the body idea. Merely trying to lessen the fears and satisfying desires will not remove this sense of emptiness you are trying to escape from. Only self-knowledge can help you. By self-knowledge I mean full knowledge of what you are not. Such knowledge is attainable and final. Nisargadatta Maharaj.
So the master here points out clearly that self-knowledge is not acquired by adding any knowledge to what we already know. It is knowing who we are. So if somebody asks me, who are you? Normally I would say, I'm Stelian Akoni, I live there, I'm doing this, I'm working on this job, and I have a family, I have, all the rubbish which comes with it. It's not rubbish in its own word, it's just information. So all that information which we know about ourselves, it's conditioning. And conditioning, it's the content which we hold in our consciousness about ourselves, about others, about ideas, concepts which we might have and hold to. It is a state where we all the time refer to that conditioning. We refer to ourselves through information. It's like forming an image about ourselves. And I am this, and I know that, and I'm good, and whatever we think of ourselves all the time. And that image is always coming with new information and taking old information out. So it's in continuous transformation. So it's nothing permanent in that image which we hold about ourselves. So the more that image is more flexible, more fluid, like water, the better we have flow with life, with understanding, the better we relate to people. The more rigid we are into and holding to that image of ours, the more prone to suffering we are. For example, somebody comes and calls me names or tells me I'm an idiot for some reason. The moment I hear that, my image, which I have about myself being ethical and moral and I'm the best and whatever I might think of myself, it's broken by the other person calling me an idiot. So you see how we get hurt. But our real self doesn't really get hurt. It is only the image which we hold about ourselves which gets hurt. So it is just a illusional image which we hold about ourselves which gets hurt, and that's the ego. The ego is just a conditioning. Since we are small, we are taught to live in different ways. The culture we live, the society we live in, have conditioned us to some aspect of our lives. We also add to that conditioning by our experiences, by our knowledge from these experiences. And so there's always a constant flux of new images coming in about ourselves and others, about how we relate to the world. This making of images is normal, but what is not normal about it is to get attached to an image and hold it. Because what you hold to, it's just an illusion. It's just a construct which we have developed in our minds about ourselves and others. So, an example of conditioning is from a master, well-known master, which has taught me a great deal. So he was asked about a question: what would you do if you have a sister and she gets raped? And his answer was, I don't know what I'll do. I only know when that happens. So you see, his answer was perfectly coming from self-knowing. And how this came about is because he has not used any conditioning. He was not conditioned that if that happens, I will do this, or I will do that, or I will act that way. He allows the acting to happen intelligent when it happens, when is need to act. So he will act accordingly by what the intelligence is saying at the moment it happens. So ego, or content of our consciousness, has no relevance in his acting. So most of us, we act mostly in our daily life from these conditionings. Now, there's nothing wrong with being conditioned, because one has to know where one lives and one has to work with these images, but one has to be flexible with them and allow them to change all the time, because truth is a living thing. It is in continuous transformation. It's not something you hold to and say, I've got it. The moment you say you have it, you don't really have it, because then you are caught in an idea, in a concept which you think you have. So everything is in the mind. Everything we know about ourselves, it's relative, because it changes all the time. So that's why Nisargadatta Maharaj points out that we need to look at ourselves openly. We need to look at our habits. We need to look at our ideas and concepts which we hold very dearly. We see why we hold to our flags, to our nations. On a physical aspect of existence, borders are needed, because otherwise it will be a little bit chaos on the geopolitical aspect and geographic aspect of life, where everyone will want to live in US, for example, and if everyone goes there, of course, that's not feasible. So physical borders are needed, but psychological borders are not needed. And this is where the problem lies. We create barriers with our own minds, that I'm American, or I am Australian, or I am Chinese or Iranian. We hold on to our religious beliefs, which are only beliefs, and if we are stuck by them, and if you are so stuck and hold on to it, you cannot flow with life, with truth. And this is why we see so much sorrow, so many wars in the world. They don't happen because religion. They happen because we don't understand religions, because we don't understand what those masters have taught us, because our egos are interfering with the process of our lives, with the flows of our life, and not allowing love to manifest through it. It is not easy to come to a state where you are free from your conditioning. But if one every day, for example, I cannot do without my coffee in the morning, then one will say, okay, let's see, if I don't have coffee for 3 days in the morning, what happens within me? What happens in my body? How am I to react? What happens in my mind? And if one goes through it and observes the reactions, the feelings which arises from not having coffee, one will slowly come to understanding that one is not dependent on that coffee or whatever habit one might have. So one will see that yes, coffee has its place, but if I don't have it, or if I have it, it does not make any difference to the self, to the real self, to the real me. Not the me which I have been conditioned to, which is a set of ideas, concepts, habits, illusions which I hold in my mind about myself and others. So if I drop all my conditioning, not that I drop it and erase it, because that cannot be done, but in a way that I'm not attached to anything which is in that conditioned mind, so that I can flow with life, then there's no restriction, there's no resistance to that flow of life. So then love can manifest and take me in the directions which I have to go through, not which I might desire to go through. So you see, the desires are made and they base on our conditioning mostly. So if this conditioning is understood and you look at it from a sense of, let's see, if I live my life with what I don't like for a week and drop what I like, excuse me, what happens then? What feelings do I have? Because feelings are normal in us. Without feelings, we would not be able to exist properly in this three-dimensional existence. So it's imperative to feel. But what happens is, when the feeling arises, stay with the feeling, welcome the feeling, understand the feeling. Do not react to the feeling straight away, because that reaction is a reaction from conditioning. It is very fast. You cannot even catch it. But if you catch it, you are blessed, because in that way you don't create emotions. Emotions are just illusory. They are like mirages in the desert, which create a lot of bad habits, create a lot of havoc, and create suffering. So it is important to look at ourselves every day, to see what it is to live freely without depending on this conditioning, depending on what you know from yesterday, and allowed what you know now, what you see now, which is real, because only now it's real, not tomorrow and not yesterday. So in that way of living, where you observe yourself, you will get to know the self, not by adding some knowledge or experience to it, but by being it. Only by being it, it reveals itself. And then you don't really need to know it when you live it. So let's say, for example, God wants to look at himself, and he makes a big mirror to look at himself. Can he look at himself? I don't think so. And the reason being is because he is also the mirror. So you see the paradox? He is also the mirror. He's everything. He's infinite and eternal. So how can one little aspect of it see the whole? It's the same with the self. One little aspect of the self cannot see the whole. You can only be it. That's it. And stay with it and move with it and feel it. Feel it. Do not react to that feeling. Just go with that feeling. Go with that flow of love and life. So self-knowledge, it's not something which you learn, like you go to school and learn about it. Same is with life. One learns from experiences, from reactions, from feelings, from looking at, why do I do this every day? Why do I have to have my coffee in the morning every day? And what will happen if I don't have it? What will happen if things don't go my way? Why am I reacting so badly, so emotionally? Why am I creating so much suffering for myself when there's no need to? Because the self has everything in it, and nothing is apart from that self. So when you come to a state where you understand who you are not by looking, by observing with no conditioning, not looking at your content of your consciousness, not saying that I am this or that and holding on to it. Only when you drop the holding, only when you let go of conditioning, only when you move always with the presence, only then you'll know the self. In that knowing, there's a life, a quality of life and love which will manifest by itself. You don't have to put an effort into it. The only effort needed is to understand who you are not, to understand how your conditioning, how your ego plays an important role in creating havoc in your world, how it divides us, communities, families. You only have to look at the world today and you see it. It's playing in a clear light. It is not hard to observe the division which the ego has created, by always making us think that we are better than the other, that we know better, than the democratic state is better than a communist, and then Islam is better than Christianity and all this rubbish. Nothing is better than the other. It might be better in some aspects of life, but it's never free. To be free is to let go of all ideas, all concept about who you are and who the other one is. And in that letting go, one might come to a quality of love which cannot be described by thought, which cannot be given to another. It is only when one discovers it, one then has it in everyday life, every day, and lives in peace with animals, with nature, and with beings. I don't know if I have covered enough, but I have tried to explain that self-knowledge cannot be taught by another. It can only be discovered by ourselves. So all the masters has pointed this to us. They never gave us a how to do it. They only pointed that self-knowledge is imperative for us in order to live a harmoniously life. So I have touched attachments previously, which are a key to getting to the self-knowing. The less attachments you have in the world about objects, people, about anything, the more prone you are to get close to that self-knowing. Also, I touch awareness. The more you are aware of every little things which go on in your life, the more you are aware of your habits, of your tendencies, or of your impression which the mind has imposed on you since you were born. The more you are aware of those things, the more you get into self-knowing. And then the knowing drops and the self remains. And when you live in that state of self, there's no division between you and another. Not that there's no division between forms. Of course, forms are, my form is my form, and your form is your form. But on a psychological level of existence, there's no division. There's no resistance. There's no clinging to another. So there's a peace which cannot be given to another. It can only be lived by one who has found it. So if one is really, really has the intention to find the self, it is not an easy task. It is a hard work to understand who you are not in order to come to understand who you really are. And yes, in the videos to come, we'll go more and more into self-knowledge, and not only to self-knowledge, but one has to understand this conditioning. One has to understand how the ego works. One has to understand the mind. And one has to understand the unity of all. We are all one living being, moving and living in a beautiful joy. If you touch that joy, nothing else matters. So I hope you find the self. I hope you are driven by a desire which is inherent in all of us to be complete, to be fulfilled. And that completeness and fulfillment and joy, one will find it only in knowing and in unveiling our true reality, as I explain in the book I have written. So I wish you have a very nice day. Be happy, be joyful. And till next time, bye-bye.